We met on Harinam in Pitt Street Mall about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
I was taking a walk after eating my lunch. I could hear this sound, ching, 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 ching. There's devotees somewhere, so I'm looking around everywhere, I can't find them. There's a big building site there, so I thought eventually, it's just the building site. So I go to walk back to work, and then there you are on the other side of the mall. So I joined in the dancing. My boss came along, so I'm waving to him. I get back to work. He didn't want to. When I got back to work, he's telling everybody at work, guess what I saw, guess what I saw. I saw Antony dancing in the wall. Then he comes up and said, I wish I was as brave as you. I said, what do you mean brave? Dancing in the mall, he said. I said, next time we're dancing in the mall, I'll bring you in. Oh, don't do that, don't do that.
That's one of the nice things about today, this modern day that we're living in, is that people are a lot more receptive, a lot more open, a lot more kind of like attracted towards this street sankirtan, the chanting on the streets, much more than ever before. Where's Swineboard Prabhu? Where's Anand? How do you go? Good to see you a long time. Where's Swineboard?
I don't know,
I saw him earlier on. I was joking with him earlier on. He was my first sankirtan leader in my when I first came to the temple in exactly 1971. So 38 years ago, almost to the day, September, a few days. He was like the kirtan leader that day. So that's the first kirtan I ever went on with.
Wow.
Hare Krishna. Okay, over to you. Are we over?
I was waiting for this second microphone,
On the microphone.
so we can all hear everything that you say, so we can capture everything.
Capture it. Come on, you boys. You haven't drunk enough water. Hare Krishna.
Simple presidents are waiting.
I know. That's the way the mice do play.
That's right.
He's in Auckland. I just came from Auckland. You'll be pleased to know that Sri Prahlad is moving to Sydney.
Wow, really?
Yes. There's someone to interview.
Certainly, he's on my list.
He's been living in Auckland for 2 or 3 years. He's planning to move there. Come into order. Who is overseeing the actual installation tonight, or whatever we call it? Srila Prabhupada's changing over. No, I don't know about it. Who's actually overseeing? Does anyone know? Must be somebody who's overseeing the ceremony tonight.
Is it Prabhu?
Is it?
You ready?
Yep.
All set.
Okay. Please let me interrupt our normal program and introduce another session of Pamho Live with Janananda Swami. Thanks for your patience for waiting for us to get ready. So I'll launch right into the questions, or we might run out of time. So, just talking about the installation of the Murti here of Srila Prabhupada leads me to my first question. I hear that you met Srila Prabhupada some years ago, it must have been. Is that correct? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
How long will I have for this question? Sometimes I go on till the end of the session.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Time limit.
5 minutes. Well, the first time Srila Prabhupada would regularly visit London. When I first went to the temple was in September 71. Prabhupada had just left. He'd been in London a few weeks before that. And I came, but it was, you can say you can meet Prabhupada in so many ways, but I think you mean literally, physically, so to speak. So the first time we actually had that wonderful opportunity was in 1972. We had to wait till July, the beginning of July. Srila Prabhupada came to London in 1972. He came every year, almost every year. In 72 he came to London. We only had one temple then in Bury Place. We didn't have the manor in those days, nor Sutter Street. So Prabhupada was coming, he would stay in Bury Place. So he was arriving at Heathrow Airport at 11 o'clock in the morning. And about, 5 of us were sent to the airport. Swineboard was one of the 5. And he's not with us today. Mahavishnu, Swineboard, Diranai, Kajagari and myself, we went to the airport in an old vehicle, a transit van, to get ready for Srila Prabhupada's arrival at Heathrow Airport. The temple president at that time was Dhananjaya, and the other devotees, they'd arranged to have a reception for Prabhupada at Heathrow Airport in a room which was slightly bigger than this, maybe 50% perhaps bigger than this hall. So we had to go out there and clean it up and put the chairs out and get ready. We had to take the Vyasa down, which was enormous. Just like, well, you remember that huge Vyasa? So we had to take that out to Heathrow Airport. And I think yourself and Mahavishnu were responsible for that Vyasa at Heathrow Airport. And I was responsible for the chairs and tables in this reception hall. A lot of press people and journalists were invited to come that day. And Diranayaka was looking after the prasadam on the opposite side of the room to me. And this way we were a few hours, Prabhupada, I think about 11 o'clock she was due to arrive. We were there maybe 8, 9 o'clock or something. So not long after we gotten in there, and you hardly started setting up the Vyasa, I remember that. They were still behind it. I was on one side behind the chairs getting them ready. And it wasn't very long, all of a sudden Jaivari, who was like the secretary of the temple, came running into this room. He was trying to arrange Srila Prabhupada's immigration clearance, VIP clearance and so on. He came running in and he said, "Prabhupada's already here." This was like 9 o'clock, nobody else was there. And within just a few moments after that, Srila Prabhupada walked into the room. And they had Nanda Kumar was within that day, Prajumna, Nanda Kumar, maybe Shyama Sundar, were with Prabhupada when he came to London that time. And he just walked into the room, and there was a door was similar to that. The door was there, and the Vyasam was there, not completely put together, and there was nobody in the room at all. I was kind of hiding behind chairs. It looked like Swayambhu and Mahavishnu were behind the Vyasasana, and Diranayaka was behind the prasadam. And Prabhupada walked into this empty hall, literally empty. A few chairs were put out, and he just walked straight up to the Vyasasana, more or less, and sat down on the Vyasasana and was looking out. I could see him clearly from where I was. I was a little very nervous. Of course, I didn't know what it was like a shock, complete shock. I just wasn't expecting it. I expected the room to be full of devotees and pressmen, and I wasn't worried at all, you know. But here you were, practically the only one visible in the whole room, and Prabhupada's walking in. And of course, Jayari was there, the secretary, fortunately. And Prabhupada walked straight up to his Vyasasana, sat down and looked around. All I heard him say is, "Where are all the devotees?" I didn't hear anything else. He said, "Where are all the devotees?" And Jayari said something. I presume he told them they were all at the temple. And then the next thing I heard, that we were going to go back, Prabhupada was going to go back to the temple. But before he did that, he saw there was some prasadam was over that side on the tables. So he wanted to have a plate of prasadam. So he called for prasadam, and they brought the prasadam over on a plate into his breakfast. This was about 9 o'clock in the morning, I guess. And Prabhupada took quite a fairly large plate of prasadam actually. He really liked this one preparation, chira. Chira, you know, chira, chabda, chira. It's like fried chickpea flour and peanuts and fried potatoes and raisins. Spicy, very spicy. Prabhupada loved that. And he took an extra full tiffin. He filled his tiffin up with this. And then he left back to the temple in the vehicle, which we brought, I guess. I don't know how he went back. But he went back to the temple, and we were left there to clean up. Did you stay back at the Heathrow with us? We were there till late afternoon, practically. They forgot about us. We were stuck out at the airport. We had to put all the chairs, tables, everything back again. In those days we didn't have a penny to our name. We were just stuck at the airport. We couldn't go on the underground, or there wasn't an underground then. We couldn't take the bus or anything back to London. So we missed the whole program in London, in Bury Place, and all the feast went back. One thing that did go back was all the prasadam, and so we missed all that too. But that was the first time we saw Srila Prabhupada.
Well, whilst I was doing some research to come up with some questions to ask you, one of the things that I came across is that you may have been the temple president in Sydney at some time. Is that correct?
Very, very briefly, and it wasn't very actively either.
Where was the temple then?
In King's Cross. So it was a long story, interesting story. At that time I was staying at New Govardhan. You remember that? I lived in New Govardhan. And I'd gone, my visa had expired for Australia, so I went to New Zealand for a couple of weeks on Auckland, and it was Radhastami, and Tamal Krishnamaj was there. So he said, well, there was something going on in Sydney. I had nothing to do with Sydney. He said, and I was going back to Australia, so why don't you come, we're going to have a meeting in Sydney. So I went back to Sydney. This was about September, October 19, whatever it was, 19, I don't know. Can't remember. 91, I suppose. And I came to Sydney, and sure enough, they were having a meeting in Sydney, in King's Cross. They had the meeting upstairs in what was the theatre. And it was a meeting to discuss the future of Sydney. So at that time, it was interesting. There was one manager, I can't remember her name, some of you may remember, but her father was an estate agent, and she had become a devotee. So it just so happened that this building, as you know, previously to that, we were renting this building at one time, see? And then they moved out to Cessnock, and we gave up this building here. So this building had come back up on the market again, and it so happened that her father was handling it. So she was the daughter. So her father wasn't very favourable to Krishna consciousness. So the building was going pretty good price, because something to do with the history of this building. I won't get into the history of this building. And it was still pretty much, the altar, the marble, many things were still there. So it was kind of like interesting. We were looking for another building here in Sydney at that time, or a move. Especially some of the senior devotees weren't too satisfied staying in King's Cross as our only centre in Sydney at the time. I personally liked it. So anyway, there was this discussion whether we were going to go for this building, whether there was going to be some kind of offer for this building. So, and Tamal Krishnamaj was there, and he was very influential in this part of the world in those days. So there was no one. Ramai Swami was stand-in president in King's Cross at the time, stand-in. He was very, unwillingly, in a sense, filling the role. Patasana Prabhu and others had moved into other areas of service, and he was unwillingly filling the role. So he wanted to, throw in the towel at that sort of time. Anyway, he wanted to get out and preach, basically. So there was no one. I mean, it was going back. Nareshwar was like holding the trumps. Being the man really holding the financial whip at that time. So there was no one was responsible, so Tamal Krishnamaj put the pressure on me. Out of the blue, I had no idea what was going on, I didn't have any inclination whatsoever, really, and somehow or another I had one night to think about it. So it almost rested on the decision whether I would accept that responsibility or not. To be the president at that time of King's Cross, and the idea here also when we moved here. So if I didn't agree, it was like Nareshwar wasn't into it, because I knew Nareshwar well. I'd worked with him in the BBT for many years, and he trusted me very fully. So he was, he wasn't very keen about others putting the signature on such a large investment. So I agreed, and so then the effort went ahead, and they got this property here on paper, although I never acted as such, really. I was officially supposed to be the president here, but I didn't act as such. Before we moved here, we had another meeting in Melbourne, and change took place, and Amaran was given approval to, or the encouragement to take the presidentship here before we actually moved here.
You're the momentary president.
At the moment, yeah, a distance really. I came every month to King's Cross. I was staying in New York then. And I would come down every month for maybe 4 or 5 days like that. But Ramai Maharaj agreed to stay on until we moved here. So basically, he and Dayasara were looking after King's Cross, and I just kind of was in touch with it. But it was only a paperwork.
Paper presidents.
I got out of it just in time.
I heard you've also been the 10th president in New Zealand, is that right?
Yeah. Well, you're asking me embarrassing questions.
Was that for a longer period of time?
Yeah, it was a longer period of time, yeah.
I figure that must be a tough role, 10th president. It wouldn't be very easy. What are the challenges of that kind of a role?
It's like anything. If you fit the role, it's fun,
Yeah.
It's one of the secrets of life is finding out where you fit, what shape you are. It's like Arjuna or a fighter. Fighting is natural. It's not like but someone who's not a fighter, it's like like a nightmare. You know, if you're put in the boxing ring, for instance, with a world champion boxer, it's like a nightmare. But if you're that type of person, it's like the greatest, joy of your life. So it's like that in devotional service too. Of course, if you're completely surrendered, any service is completely enlightening and spiritually uplifting in every respect. But if you're not, like me, a very conditional person, then, when one's in a situation which is perhaps not quite so compatible, then it may not work quite so, Actually, when it comes to management, I kind of, in one sense, don't really quite like, in one sense, but it's just not my nature. It's just not my capacity, in many ways. So in New Zealand, it was, again, a request. It would be 1994. I was that time back in Malaysia, and there was some difficulties in New Varshan in New Zealand. Okay. It was renowned for, let's say, interesting managerial experiences at that time. And there was the temple president then, Baba, wanted to step down. There was no one really, there was a little bit of a disagreement about the building there. Has anyone seen the beautiful temple in Auckland? Who's been to Auckland and you've seen the beautiful temple there? You've been, Rupert?
Not since it's been finished.
Huh?
Not since it's been finished.
Really? So you have a beautiful temple in Auckland, a very nice built temple. It only took 17 years to complete, but it was a nice temple. And when at that time it had come to a standstill, and there was a bit of a difference of opinion about whether we should continue or not. So a lot of the devotees felt differently, and they moved away. So there's a bit of a problem there. So Prabhu Vishnu was the GBC at the time, and I was an old friend. We joined more or less together as well, Prabhu Vishnu, Swami, and myself. Actually, it was interesting in London. The first traveling Sankirtan party ever in Europe was formed by Prabhu Vishnu Swami in London. He was a brahmachari in 1972. And on that party was a few others were on the party, maybe Swinburne was on it at one time, I don't know. But when I joined it, which was after a few months, it was Mahavishnu, who is now Mahavishnu Swami. Prabhu Vishnu became Prabhu Vishnu Swami. Bhakti Vijendra, or Vijendra Kumar, became Bhakti Vijendra Nandana Swami. And then myself. So it was like a Swami party there. So we're all old friends, and it's like, when you serve with devotees in the early days, it's like, it really sticks, it's like some permanent brotherhood, so to speak. So Prabhu Vishnu, being GBC in this part of the world at that time, he requested me. I wasn't really doing much in Malaysia. I'd been managing there for a long time, but I wasn't really doing particularly much at that particular time. And so he asked if I would be interested. So I came over and checked it out. And I gave all my conditions and knowing some of my limitations, none of which were of course, followed through. But
But said yes.
yes, I said, as long as I don't have to do this, and this, but as soon as you get in the role, here it comes, now you have to do this, and this. And you get swamped, so anyway, I accepted after about a year. I went back to Malaysia, then the time came back, I think 1995. In 1995, I took up that role for 95, early 96 maybe, for a couple of years. And then I shared it with Kala Sambar for a year or two. It wasn't easy. We were in a lot of financial difficulty at the time, tremendous amount of financial difficulty. We didn't have really very many dedicated serious devotees staying there at the time, so it was a little struggle. Somehow we got out of financial debt. With the help of a few devotees from Malaysia, we raised a lot of money for the new temple and went forward with that a little bit. Hopefully a little bit of progress was made there, and then Kala Sambar came on board as well, and then gradually he kind of took up the reins, and he seems to be very at home with his position over there at New Varshan, and I was very happy to see that he was very at home and moved along.
Let me ask you about other challenges. The role of a guru, I figure that would not be such a very easy role. What are some of the challenges that you would have to face becoming a guru?
Oh, I don't know. I'm probably not a very good person to ask there. I'm just hasn't really. Well, of course, the responsibilities changed, no doubt, in a sense. In one sense, personality. I hope we can advance in Krishna consciousness, that's all I can say. But other than that, I hope I haven't changed that much, but I hope that some feeling of more responsibility to Srila Prabhupada to assist the devotees who are coming to his lotus feet. That is a challenge, a constant challenge, of course, because obviously devotees have challenges themselves, and it's not like everyone's a pure devotee when they come to Krishna consciousness. So naturally there's a lot of, sometimes there's a little over-expectation, I suppose, of what you expect of the Guru and so on and so forth. We're just representatives of Srila Prabhupada. More one considers oneself fortunate to have this service on behalf of Srila Prabhupada to help guide devotees to follow Prabhupada's instructions. The more it becomes, we feel it's a great fortune rather than, a burden or, help. What am I going to do now? It's a great fortune, to have this privilege. I mean, I'm very limited in my capacity in advancement in Krishna consciousness, so you can only do what you can, be what you are, and try to share what you've got. It's really a question of sharing what Prabhupada has given us, taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada to be an instrument for his mercy. Hopefully a little bit of that at least to come through to the devotees so they can also feel Srila Prabhupada's protection and Prabhupada's presence, become inspired to follow Prabhupada's instructions, which is our real shelter. It's not that we've got others may have. I don't have anything. I have nothing of any real value, only as much as I can somehow or another tune into some of Prabhupada's most unlimited gifts that he's given to us, and I can pass on a few of them, maybe a little bit, and hopefully some devotees will become inspired to carry on Prabhupada's great mercies. For me, I mean, what can I say? I'm materially ambitious would be there, I suppose you could say, but I never expected it. It sort of came along at a certain point of time, and it was amazing how these things happen. I was quite a no-way man. There was a song by the Beatles. What was that song? He's a nowhere man or something. What was that?
He's a real nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere man.
Yeah. I really identified with that song when I was young. And I never really thought, it's amazing how, to me it's amazing someone like myself can be given this opportunity. What we make of it is another thing, but this, really nobody, still am in one sense, but to be given the opportunity to take on a responsibility like this for Srila Prabhupada is the greatest privilege I can ever imagine, to be honest. Qualified or unqualified, it's amazing that such a thing can be possible. And when we look back to 1971 and 72, we wouldn't have thought, what would be the future of it.
Yeah.
Or, taking the responsibility of sannyas, which is another responsibility.
You've mentioned a few places that you visited already. I had a couple of places in mind I want to ask you about, places that you have visited or you do visit, only because we don't hear a lot about what happens there. One of them is Klang, it's in Malaysia.
Klang?
Is that right?
What would you mention Klang for?
You visit there?
Sometimes. Why do you mention Klang?
Oh, I just wondered, it's a place that not many of us have heard about. You have programs there. I wondered
Klang.
I looked it up, it's not very far from us, but I hadn't heard of it before.
Malaysia or Klang?
Klang itself. Yeah.
Klang, not very far from us, means where? Probably.
Globally speaking, it's not very far from Australia.
Well, it's famous for crows. It's very famous. Where's Prema? Is she here? You've been to Klang, haven't you? Famous for clothes, isn't it? Crows, not clothes. Crows. Lots of crows, and they shoot the crows. That's one of the most famous things, unfortunately, stone the crows. It's a funny place, isn't it? Klang. Well, actually, there's a lot of Indian people in Klang. There's a little India there. One of the most famous little Indias in Malaysia. There's these areas in Malaysia where there's like a lot of Indian people, all Indian shops, So Klang is one of those. I lived there actually for 6 months. When I first went to Malaysia, which was in January 84, and that again was at the request of Prabhu Vishnu Swami. I've learned not to necessarily just, whatever he says, just do it. Took a few years to learn it. That was one of them. I went there in 1984, in the beginning of 84, and again there was a real challenging situation. You always asked me to go into challenging situations where there was no one left, and it was like the last straw, you know. So, I mean, you're going to ask me if I would go there, so I went there, and it was actually a breath of fresh air. But after about 4 or 5 months, so it was like supposed to be like looking after the whatever was left of ISKCON in Malaysia at that time. And somehow or another, I said a few things which I suppose I shouldn't have said in the class, or something or another, and I got pretty much chased out of the temple by the congregation. It wasn't the first and last time, I suppose. They got kind of chased out, and as well, I was pretty much threatened. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was more or less, you know, told to get out of the country, basically. But the GBCs intervened and calmed the congregation down a bit, and then it was agreed, all right, I could stay in Klang, like in exile. Stay with the crows. I'll stay with the crows in Klang.
Send him to Klang.
Yeah, sent to Klang. So I stayed in Klang for about 6 months, and we actually set the BBT Malaysia up there whilst we were there, which became quite a big operation in Southeast Asia. And it was nice. There was one other boy, a German boy, he was with me, who also got asked. And basically it was anyone who wasn't Malaysian was told to pack their bags and scram. So I was in Klang for that period of time until things settled down and go back again. But I don't know, what can I say about Klang? I don't know what more I can say.
How about another location? I can ask you about another one.
We have a nice centre in Klang. We have a Rath Theatre there. If anyone wants to come, December the 26th, we have Rath Theatre this year in Klang every year. Wonderful Rath Theatre in Klang, actually. If you want to come along, we have a very nice centre there, and many devotees there in Klang. It's a very good place for Sankirtan, if anyone wants to come there for Sankirtan.
Let me ask you about another location then.
Surely.
In the Philippines.
Oh.
You visit there.
Yes.
I was wanting to ask you about...
I wasn't there during the cyclone.
Yeah. I was wanting to ask you about a particular program in prisons that they have there. Is that right? I've heard that they have preaching in prisons.
Well, I've been in a lot of prisons in my life. Not always for preaching. I'm a renowned criminal. I've been in prisons in Malaysia, Philippines, England, Finland, Uganda. The list goes on. Old age memory, I can't remember the rest. But those 5 or 6 come to mind, and most of them were not for the same reason as the Philippines. The Philippines it's a program which stops and starts. If there's someone to do it, it just starts again. It's a great program in the Philippines. It's a little bit perhaps different to this part of the world. A little bit more informal, you know. Of course, you have to have some lead to get in, but it's not difficult. In the Philippines, Makati prison, which is Manila, the city of Manila. By the way, the temple is safe. They're okay. They did get flooded, but they're okay now. No one got injured.
It's good to hear.
Makati is like one area. It's like you've got North Sydney and Parramatta. Like Manila is made up of many different cities. So Makati is like one of the main cities. It's like the main city, really. It's the most international commercial area. And their temple is on the edge of Makati. So there's a prison there in Makati, and it's not a high security prison, but it's a prison nonetheless, a full-on prison. So it so happened that one of the persons in that prison became kind of like a devotee, and we made some relationships, the devotees made some relationships. So they were going there regularly, and I mean, a shock of my life when I went there twice, and it was a shock of our lives to see how amazing it is to go into a prison like that, where there are all these kind of cells. They're quite crowded, the cells there. They're not, I don't know how the cells are in Partly. I've never been in Partly yet. But I almost went there a couple of years ago. We didn't get it together. Wasn't eligible to enter in at that time. But anyway, we went in, you know, and of course it's a prison, so there's certain formalities are involved, but once you were in, there weren't many formalities. It was amazing. There's like there were a dozen big cells, and each cell is about 40 prisoners. Big cells, they're like cages, nearly as big as this room, almost. Big cages. And we go into one cell, you know, and we could just, the doors were open, we just go from one cell to the other. It was just like going on Sankirtan from one suburb to the next. And you go in the cell, and the prisoners actually, the warden let them go out of that cell into the next cell whilst we were there. It was amazing. And there were so many, hundreds of them just dancing and singing and chanting away. They were having an amazing time. They were dancing like crazy, these people. Dancing, chanting the holy name. And we had lots of prasadam for them all. We gave everyone a book. You know, I mean, it was just amazing. It's just amazing to see that these people, although they may be considered to be criminals, are just as eligible and just as interested, perhaps more so in Krishna consciousness than anyone else. It's a wonderful program. I mean, it's hard to, it's a few years ago since I last went to the prison there, but it was just amazing to experience the love and the reciprocation with these prisoners. There was no sign of any kind of, what do you say, aggression or negativity. They were just, you know, so sweet. It was just so nice. I don't know what they were all in there for, different things, but you know, you wouldn't, they're just like anyone else, you know. It's just so wonderful. In that situation, of course, it was the highlight. This was like a big thing. This was like a big thing for them. They really love it. It's a wonderful program. They may not be able to do that sort of thing here, of course, exactly the same way. But they're a wonderful program. Philippines is a great place for preaching. And wonderful.
Let me ask you about World Holy Name Day. I hear that you're a big supporter of that.
A supporter of World Holy Name Day. No, World Holy Name Week.
Week?
Yeah, we
I wondered if you could tell us about that.
Ooh.
What that's all about.
Well, it started 3 years ago with World Holy Name Day. Then last year, there are three of us who are directors, and Lugna Swami, myself, and the lovely Prabhu, who are officially the directors of this project, which is an international, worldwide project, and every temple is requested or encouraged to participate in it. And we did something here also for 3 days, I don't know, something we did. But the idea is that it's really our mission of our Krishna conscious movement to spread the holy name. That's really what we're all here for. Either to receive the holy name, to, you know, absorb ourselves in the holy name, or to distribute the holy name, or all three. But that's really what we're here for. That's what the purpose of our ISKCON Krishna conscious movement is to facilitate the Yuga Dharma. Yuga Dharma means the practical process in this age that we're in for attaining spiritual perfection. So the Yuga Dharma is known as Harinam Sankirtan, the Vikalera Dharma, Harinam Sankirtan, the chanting of the holy name. That's the practice of this age. So it is talked about, and you see in all of our magazines, practically speaking, the Back to Godhead, the most important thing are pictures of devotees chanting in various ways. Sometimes they just pose for the picture and things like that. But there's not an awful lot around our movement, as there used to be. We go back to the early 70s. I actually calculated that per se, if you take 24 hours of the day, and the number of devotees living in temples in ISKCON, but not including the congregation, obviously they have other things to do. But living in the temple is in ISKCON, you take, say there's 50 to 100 devotees and there's 24 hours in a day, that means you've got 240 potential hours to use in a day. So I calculated that in 1970, early 70s, that 240 hours, 20% of it was on Sankirtan, Harinam Sankirtan, chanting on the streets. In other words, an average devotee was going out about 5 or 6 hours a day, every day on the street chanting. Now in 1992 I did a similar estimate, and it came to 0.02%. From 20% to 0.02% in most temples, I did that. So that's quite a drop, and after all it is the Yuga Dharma. Now we're doing other things, no doubt, but that doesn't mean to say that we should kind of like let the chanting of the public, congregational chanting of the holy name be so minimized. It is the most important activity, even book distribution. Prabhupada put most emphasis on. This is also Sankirtan and Kirtan. But it does, what book distribution is supposed to do is to get people to chant. That's what the point is, to get people to accept the chanting of the holy name as their life and soul. So, and everything we do, really, in a sense, is the result, the positive result of that is that people will be becoming more attracted to chanting the holy names. So, one of the things we were finding is that all over the world, wherever we're going, people are becoming more, the public are becoming more interested in street chanting. The response in every Western country particularly has improved so much over the last 30 years, it's almost amazing. It's incredible. People don't care what you dress like much now. You can dress what you like. Although we don't encourage that necessarily, we like to dress nicely on the Sankirtan. But even still, people are not so fussy as they used to be like that. They're much more open to this, and they're more exposed to it. Many of the people who are born now, young people, they've seen it in the previous lifetime. Everyone's heard about the George Harrisons and the Beatles. You know, it's been going on for 40 years now, so it's become a little familiar in people's minds. It's not like a threat like it used to be, or a cult or something. And but they don't see us very often. As I said, in the 70s, early 70s, perhaps 6 to 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours a day, the party was on the street in all the major cities, wherever they were. There may have only been a few of them, but people thought we were many. They thought we were many. Wasn't it, Cyborg? They see us everywhere, practically. There's only maybe 20 or 30 of us, but to them, they must have 100,000 of you guys. Everywhere I go, I see you guys, you know. Because we were always out. That was our life, you know. So they kind of disappeared. And even those who go on books, they don't know who you are. They're dressed in shirt and coat and pants. They don't know who you are. They walk past you. They don't even think of Krishna when they walk past you. When they walk past a devotee dressed like this, they think of Krishna. It reminds them of Krishna. This is preaching. When they see someone dressed like this, shaved head, sari, tilak, they think of Krishna. That's called preaching. Preaching means to remind people of Krishna. It's not just making money and selling books, it's to remind people of Krishna. This is preaching. So you remind people of Krishna. The more we're thinking of Krishna, the more obviously it's going to happen. Just by dressing like this, you remind people of Krishna. So, you know, people used to see all the devotees. Nobody would wear pants and coats, only when laundry day, when we had no dhotis left to wear. Other than that, we never wear those things, working in this garbage. You know, otherwise always dhoti, see that shaved and everything. So there was the early days, before like congregational community preaching began. So either way, it sees that people were thinking, they never see us around anymore. They don't see you. Where's your chanting parties? Everywhere. The most common question we're getting is, we never see you anymore. We thought you'd gone. Underground, disappeared somewhere. So the idea of this is, I mean, it's just general build-up. Many of us were feeling the need to try to inspire the devotees in our movement to put more emphasis on the chanting of the holy names, both amongst the devotees in the temple, in the homes, but particularly in the street and public. So this was a brainchild of, you can say, Loknath Maharaj, and he proposed it, the GBC accepted it, but you know, then they said that we three should try to organize it. So it's going on, and last year we made it a week, and this year was bigger, I think. This year was 10 days. It's slowly creeping up. We want to make it 365 days of the year. That's our plan. But that may take a few more years.
World Holy Name Year.
Yeah, just World Holy Name. Full stop. So that's not everyone. We don't care what they're on. Let them chant the names of Jesus or Allah, whatever name. Ultimately, we want everyone to come out and just glorify God by chanting His holy names. But this year was more. This year became more technological. I dropped out of most of it because I can't handle when it gets too complicated. I get short-fused. So I just like to go out on the street, dance and chant, and encourage others to do so. But I'm not into sort of all these technical things on the internet, video, this and that. I can't relate to it all. So that was also going on this year. But I still think the street Sankirtan was the most successful. You know, I don't know what else you did here in Sydney when I wasn't here, but I know in Auckland, that was the main place I was involved in, was in Auckland, trying to get the devotees a little bit involved there. But they really set it up amazingly in Auckland. I wonder when Abhay Charan Prabhu was out of the service. He was over here for a while. He go cool. Anyway, he didn't know what to do, and he was going, what should I do with my life? I'm married, I'm out of work. I don't feel like I'm doing anything. And I said, well, look, World Holy Name Week coming up. Why don't you see if you can take a week or two off work and organize it? So he did, and he did an amazing job. Amazing job. Absolutely incredible. The devotees were going out, because there's not really hardly, you know, devotees who are from the loft here. You know, there's hardly any full-time devotees at New Varshan. But every day they had minimum 15 devotees going out on the street. On the Fridays we had, most Fridays, over 80 devotees out. And not just in the evening, during the day we had, lunchtime we had 85 devotees on the street on Harinam in Auckland. Of course, 55 of them were Gurukul children.
Wow.
We have a Gurukul there, and 55 of them were little kids. It was amazing, the public had never seen anything like it. Can you imagine going down the main street with 55 children all dressed in uniform, all with their hands up, dancing and chanting? People were really impressed. It was amazing. But we had some good kirtans. And the last few days, Shipala joined us also for the going out. Every day they would go out about 9:30 and get back about 8 o'clock at night. 15 devotees, every day. They would go to minimum 5 suburbs, maximum 9 every day. Sometimes 9 suburbs they cover, like 30 minutes to 90 minutes in each place. In Auckland, most people don't even realize there's that many suburbs in Auckland until you really look at it. Sydney's got 10 times as many, I think, practically. But still, it was amazing. We would go to little tiny suburbs, little places, but they were amazing. Much more reciprocal than the main street. They made Queen Street look like, you know, some hellish planet or something. They were amazing. Absolutely amazing places. People were coming out their shops, jumping up and down, calling us into the pubs, dancing around the pubs, come into the restaurants, sit us down there, bring us drinks, you know, hands up in the air, posing for pictures. People coming out of everywhere, cars stopping, people getting out, you know. Amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was incredible just to see the reciprocation. When you give, Sankirtan is not an activity only, it's the heart. When you realize that these people are devotees, every living entity is a devotee. Everybody. You know, if we think they're, oh, I don't like it, they're karmis, they're nonsense, they're look at that dirty. That's what you'll get. Put that out the window. There's useless information, even if there's any truth in it. And just go out with just how fortunate we are. These are all Lord Chaitanya's devotees. And people feel it. When you're happy, you reciprocate with the people they want to reciprocate. They're looking for love. They're looking for happiness. They're looking for joy. You know, but if we're going out in our old closer faces, what am I doing out here? These people are all demons. They don't like it. They don't like this chanting. The problem is we don't like it, not them. Get off the mental platform and do it. Devotees, like Prince Abhay Charan, who did it, been a devotee for 25 years, he said this was the highlight of his life.
Wow.
The highlight of his life. Kalasambhara, the temple president, went out every day. Every day for 8 hours a day he went out on Sankirtan. And he said it was the most fresher breath air for him. The biggest breath of fresh air. And different devotees had different comments, but they were all amazing comments, you know. Just incredible. Couldn't believe it. The kirtan, the grand finale kirtans on Queen Street were just amazing. With 80, 85 devotees dancing and chanting on Queen Street. The power, potency there. Focused. The roads just all focused on dancing and chanting. People can't resist it. It's too attractive. Krishna consciousness is too attractive to resist. Hare Krishna. So we hope it will increase more and more and more, and devotees will realize that this is really what we're looking for. This is really what we're here for, to spread the holy name. It's the most joyful and reciprocal. If we're looking for reciprocate, the wonderful thing was that, you know, on this party there were devotees who didn't get along with each other before this started. They started going out, and at the end they were sitting down laughing and joking and telling stories about Sankirtan and taking prasadam together and sharing things, and it was amazing. It brought unity. Even the devotees who didn't go out in the temple, some of them would double up their services so others could go out. Others were cooking lunch for the devotees so they could take out packed lunch. Others, every night we would go to a congregational devotee's home just to take, they would make wonderful prasadam and have a little kirtan in and take prasadam and go back to the farm. Every night, different homes in different suburbs like that. It was very well organized. They had, every day they gave out about 200 or 300 cookies, plus about 500 flyers every day, plus books, as well as the chanting going on. Amazing. It really was. And since then, the devotees have been going out every day on Sankirtan, since Lord Holy Name Day as well. Some of them just can't stop.
It's very successful.
Yeah, momentum. So you just have to keep on reminding each other, this is really, I mean, this is the solution to all of our problems. It's not, you know, you may do other things, you know, go through some courses with therapy and all these other things that do in this day and age, but this is the real medicine, this is the real cure to all problems. So we have to come together. Congregational chanting is the Yuga Dharma, not individual chanting. Congregational chanting. But this is just a little drop of that nectar. I just felt on occasions it was just like something straight out of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, out of Lord Chaitanya's personal Sankirtan pastimes. It was so amazing. And that's happening everywhere. I mean, wherever we go in England, it's just, it's incredible. They've got these people there called the emos. You've got them here too. That's not some type of medicine you take for stomachache. These are young people who dress in black and they have some funny philosophy falling into goths and self-destruction type philosophy. But they do love the Harinam Sankirtan. Whenever they see us in England, they just go wild. They're a little bit, I saw them in Parramatta a few weeks ago. They weren't quite so reciprocal, but in England they go wild everywhere. Being Manchester, Newcastle, Leeds, Birmingham, everywhere I've seen these people, they just go wild. They're young kids, 13 to 15. Probably they met us in the previous lifetime. Probably passed away with drug overdose or something like that. And have come back again as goths or emos. Now they've got a little bit of the samskara in them and they're showing great attraction to the consciousness.
Let me ask a related question. The Kirtan Standard Committee.
Where'd you get all this information
Research.
from? Lord.
Why don't you tell us about
You have to tell me who's giving you all this information. You're an embarrassing question. Well, that's another committee which was formed 3 years ago, which I'm the chairman, convener, whatever you want to call it. Official committee. We're grovelling. Well, I'm grovelling. The rest of the committee have given up trying because of me, I think. Coming up with standards for Kirtan in ISKCON. Well, we don't want to dishearten anybody, but yeah, we're still working on it. We want to try to come up with standards which are pleasing to Prabhupada, faithful to Prabhupada, effective, enlightening to devotees, etc., etc.
what kind of standards are you interested in, that you're looking at?
What kind of standards? Well, we have our premises, and then there are details. Standards in regards to, you know, time, place, and circumstance, where types of dancing, types of musical instruments, the songs that we sing, the mood, the consciousness of the devotees who are leading the kirtan particularly, and so on and so forth like that. We're dividing into different series. Temple kirtan, public kirtan, bhajan, 3 different categories you could say are there of kirtan. And the standards are slightly different. Prabhupada has given guidelines to a certain extent, not as clear as in some areas, but to some extent. Prabhupada gave guidelines which seem to be time, place, and circumstance in many cases. But there are some areas where definitely Srila Prabhupada made it quite clear to keep our movement together, with Prabhupada in the center, with Krishna in the center. We don't just introduce any old thing and do anything just because we feel like it and sing anything we like. There's a lot of things that have crept in and have become almost standards within ISKCON since Prabhupada's time, which I think devotees should be aware of, are not perhaps the best way to assist Srila Prabhupada in spreading Krishna consciousness. It's got to be a balance, you know, you can't kind of just bang this as the law. You've got to kind of take into account the situation we're in and try to present something which will be perpetuating into the future as well. At the same time, which we feel will be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. If we only but knew he's still here with us today. It's a very difficult challenge because even amongst our committee members there are vast array of differences, so to speak, in putting emphasis on certain things. Like dancing has become quite a topic of concern. Musical instruments. These two are two things we've been dealing with mostly recently, back and forth. The excessive use, for instance, of djembe in our kirtans today has become a tremendous source of concern for many devotees. And some are just walk out of the kirtan as soon as they see djembes being played. Others won't take part in the kirtan unless they're allowed to play the djembe. So we're faced with these difficulties, you know. We go to Rath Yatras in Europe and sometimes there's only djembes. Like one Rath Yatra, even the BTG, I was just looking at the proud picture of the recent BTG. There's 2 djembes, 2 accordions, 1 wamper, no cartels, and 1 madanga. I would never put a picture like that in any magazine. But devotees don't even think about it nowadays. You know, this is not Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. This is our introduction. These instruments, for instance, can be used in Krishna service. Anything can be used in Krishna service. But they're not transcendental source. Madanga and kartals, particularly for Lord Chaitanya's instruments. And there's so many times Prabhupada said, Madanga and kartals is not enough. We don't need any other instrument at all. That's enough. And amazingly enough, in Auckland, the best kirtan of all, we had no microphone, no djembe, no wampers, only we had 1 accordion with Prahlad, and madongas and kartals. And that was by far and away the best kirtan we had throughout the whole World Holy Name Week. Really amazing kirtan. So you don't need all these things. It may be necessary to attract people initially to take part, but they're not. To enter deeper into kirtan, then we should take advantage of the most transcendental musical instruments as well. The djembe can be used to attract people or make a loud noise on public kirtan maybe, but it's become overwhelming now. It's become almost overwhelming. Some things have gone way out of hand. Even the chanting of Radhi Radhi and other mantras like this, which were never done during Prabhupada's time. Never, never, never. They become almost accepted as norms. And if you say anything, you get in trouble. So we have to be very balanced. There's no, but the holy name of Radharani is so confidential and so elevated. It's not something just for public distribution. She's appeared in a way which others can associate with her in the form of Hare, in the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And we're supposed to be servants of Srimati Radharani. So to please Srimati Radharani, we chant Krishna's names, not Radha's names. We're supposed to be following the footsteps of Rupa and the associates of Radharani in the spiritual seva. So mainly they chant the name of Krishna, not their own names. So we emphasize the chanting of Krishna's name. All these things which are philosophical, practical, according to Prabhupada's instruction, according to the, let's say, to enthuse the devotee. You can't just pull the plug out. You've got to do things in a way which is, you know, to give some encouragement to everybody, especially the younger members of society, etc. My approach is we have to create, one of the biggest problems is we have failed to create sufficient kirtan venues. We're still looking too much into the insular focus of the temple being our only place. It should be one of, in Sydney there should be at least 1,000 kirtan halls, minimum, where there's openings for every type of kirtan, encouraging different persons to perform kirtan according to their capacity, their spirit, etc. But the temple is the pure kirtan, to cultivate the pure chanting of the holy name. That's the main thing. The consciousness, the pure consciousness. And everything else will follow. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Here we are at the end of our allotted time.
We're at the end.
to talk. 4 minutes to go. I was wondering if I could offer you a small gift for participating with us, and I hope there aren't any photos of those drums in your hands. How about that?
Beautiful magazine.
Fantastic.
It's a Back to Godhead. Well, Back to Godhead magazine, isn't it beautiful? Is everyone getting Back to Godhead magazines? It's a beautiful, thank you so much, Antony. This is the latest edition.
It is. There's another one just about to come out.
Is there another one?
The new one is about Darwin's evolution.
Oh.
It's a whole edition about it.
Well, if you'll bear with me. Now, there's a nice picture, an old picture. This picture is going back maybe 30 years ago in South America, I think. A nice old picture. And that was the days when the brahmacharis were born, Harinam Sankirtan, of course. And we didn't have all the modern things in those days. No, maybe it's San Francisco, that one. I think that's San Francisco. Yeah, it looks like San Francisco. Very blissful picture. Very beautiful. Thank you. This is about chanting Hare Krishna. It's very nice. So Back to Godhead was my first connection with Krishna consciousness. Very good. I found the Back to Godhead magazine. And that was my first ever time I ever heard about the ISKCON movement. It was wonderful. I found the magazine it was at the end of my hippie era. And I just made a tremendous decision in my life. You see, I'm coming, as you know, we gurus, especially me, we're coming from very advanced, elevated backgrounds, and, pure devotee families. I was born in a very elevated city in England called Pig Hill. And my family were high-class butchers, as you might guess by a name like that. And I managed to avoid too much. I did work in a slaughterhouse at one point in time when I was a child, but not for long, fortunately. It was a pig area. So I did get into the hippie area, which meant, of course, getting involved in various substances which we're not supposed to be involved in. Most of my friends were very much into it. So I made a great vow at a certain point of time, terrible vow. I decided I would never, ever touch them again. So shortly after I made that vow, I had my biggest test. I went to visit my friends in Birmingham, Sutton Coldfield to be exact, and they were living there in some derelict house, and they were very much involved in these activities of drugs. Most of them become actual drug addicts, not just marijuana and LSD and things like that, but they were drug addicts. And I was visiting them. I wasn't aware that they'd become drug addicts in the few months that I'd been separated since college. So I went to see them, and I didn't relate to it. I made this vow, so I wasn't going to entertain their enticing efforts to entice me into it. So I was bored, frankly. I didn't know what to do. So I was looking for something to do, and I found a pile of more or less reject literature, newspapers. And I don't know if they were present here in the early 70s, 1970, in Sydney, but there was magazines called IT, nothing to do with the modern day IT, Indian people who all study IT and information technology, nothing to do with that. This was a underworld newspaper, International Times, or something, or whatever it was. It was an underworld newspaper, underground, hippies. And there was another one called Oz. You remember these, Franklin? Mad magazines. We used to read these when we were in a hippie era. They were all full of this, alternate lifestyle stuff. In terms of gross, not in terms of better lifestyle, intoxicating lifestyle. So we used to read these things, but then they were no longer attractive without intoxication. It didn't mean anything. So I made this vow, so that I was not interested in all these magazines anymore. But right at the bottom of the pile, there was a Back to Godhead magazine, on the very bottom. So I picked it out. Obviously, they weren't reading it very often, being on the bottom. So I pulled them out of the bottom, and I just started reading them, two of them. And I read them back to front all night long. The next day, I just kept reading them. And I was completely convinced there and then that this was it. This was the truth. So I asked them after they came down a little bit from their various stages of intoxication if I could take them. And they said no problem. So I took them away. And from that I went to the temple and married all. So Back to God, it was always very dear to us. We used to go out distributing these. I was looking at the old BTGs the other day, and I like those old BTGs so much. Just wish we still had them so we could go out and distribute by the thousands. There was a time we were printing 1 million Back to Godheads every month. In 1976, I think, we were printing 1 million BTGs every month for street sanctum distribution to the public. Now I don't know. I don't think we do these on the street. They're beautiful. Hare Krishna. I guess our time has now expired. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you very much.